Broadcasting through our flagship station, KNYE in Pahrump, Nevada, and worldwide on the internet. This is Midnight in the Desert. Filling in for Dave Schrader, I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. Welcome to the best in Annapolis Talk Radio. Split show for you tonight. In our first hour, we will talk with Ronnie Renee Foster and Laura Lee Mystica. They are known as the Ghostbuster Gals, and we'll be with them in just a moment. In our second and third hours tonight, we'll be talking with Dr. Jonathan Young. You know him from Ancient Aliens. We'll be talking a little bit about his specialties, or one of his specialties. That includes how movies and characters in folklore are considered modern mythology. I want to address something just real quick before we get to our first hour guests, and I will make it brief because we have a short time with them. Kind of a sad day today, and I do want to address the elephant in the room real briefly. Today started out real sad. I know a lot of folks out in the Midnight in the Desert audience were huge fans of Tim Conway, the comedian and actor who passed away today at the age of 85. I was a huge fan of Tim Conway, and he was a huge influence on me. I mean, at least as far as comedians go, and in comedic timing and just all around as a communicator and comedian. I think more importantly, what a lot of people in our paranormal field are finding out this afternoon is that yesterday, Stanton Friedman passed away. Stanton was an amazing man in the field of ufology, and he passed away at the age of 84 last night. And I know it's been a huge shock to a lot of us in the field, even people who had met him at conventions. And I think what people who've had any contact with Stanton have found out about Stanton is that he was so warm and kind and gentle and caring, and was quick to give you a few moments of his time, and he was passionate about the field of ufology. Stanton was based in Fredericton, up in Canada. He's passed away. He was returning from a speaking engagement in Columbus, Ohio, and he had actually passed away at the Toronto Pearson Airport on Monday night. That according to his family, and this according also to the Canadian Broadcasting Company. He was 84, nuclear physicist by training. Friedman had devoted his life to researching and investigating UFOs since the late 1960s. He was credited with bringing the 1947 Roswell incident, the famous incident that gave the rise to theories about UFO and a U.S. military cover-up, back into the mainstream conversation. Friedman officially retired last year, but still booked speaking engagements because he loved talking about UFOs. This according to his daughter, Melissa, who works for CBC News. She went on to say, quote, "Dad was curious about anything he didn't know about. He was always asking questions about how things worked. I think it's rare for someone to stay so engaged and curious and open-minded for a life that's that long." She remembered her father as encouraging, proud, and caring, and said she was fortunate to have one last visit a week ago in Nova Scotia with him. Friedman was an accomplished writer, publishing dozens of papers about UFOs and writing several books. 3 of those books were written in tandem with Kathleen Marden. Marden was quoted as saying he'll be greatly missed. Marden said that in an interview from Florida. His qualifications, intelligence, and diligence made him irreplaceable in the research field. And Marden went on to say, and she also went on to say, he really did do his homework. He went further than most researchers in that he did on-site investigations. He went to actual physical archives to do his research. He was an outstanding researcher, highly intelligent, and had a great sense of humor. He was also a familiar face in documentaries, radio, and television, including multiple appearances on Larry King Live. He also lectured about UFOs for hundreds of colleges and professional groups across the U.S., Canada, and many other countries. Friedman was also inducted into the UFO Hall of Fame in Roswell, New Mexico. Marden said he remained firm in his conviction that aliens exist and have visited our planet because he had more than ample evidence on his part. He doubted everything until he had the evidence, Marden said. He was skeptical himself once he had the evidence, and it was not just speculation. It was confirmatory evidence. He went with it. In a 2011 interview with CBC News, Friedman said most people agree with him once they hear the evidence, despite the false claim of a small group of nasty, noisy negativists Most people accept ET reality, even though they think most others don't. And that quote was from Stanton himself. He said, "I check my audiences and find at the end of my lecture that about 10% of the attendees have had a sighting, but 90% didn't report it because of a fear of ridicule. I'm trying to lift the laughter curtain." Well, Stanton, you've made a mark, an indelible mark on the field of ufology, and I think in society in general. And I'll tell you, I myself got many, I consider fortunate and lucky moments to spend personally with Stanton, and I'll hold those close to my heart. Again, Stanton Friedman passed away at the age of 84. Godspeed and God bless you, Stanton. And hopefully now all disclosure is revealed on the other side, and say hello to our friend Art on the other side for us as well. I do want to remind folks that not this weekend, but next weekend, Memorial Day weekend, we will be airing some of Stanton Friedman's interviews with Beyond the Darkness and Darkness Radio over on Podcast One, and we'll keep you updated as to when those interviews will air. It'll be, again, probably Saturday and Sunday of not this weekend, but next weekend on Beyond the Darkness. Let's get to our program for this evening, shall we? Again, split show. Our first guests, plural. I have to put the emphasis on the S, the emphasis on the syllable there, are the Ghostbuster gals. Ronnie Renee Foster, also known as Angel Girl, has been exploring and evolving through the worlds of metaphysics and spirituality for over 35 years. She has a BA in psychology and her certification as an emergency medical technician. Ronnie has been a hospice volunteer for almost 20 years and is a national trainer for the Twilight Brigade, Compassion and Action, receiving her insights and inspiration from the angelic realm. Ronnie is a teacher, empath, intuitive counselor, editor, and a professional Ghostbuster. Right now she's working on a new project with Laura Lee. They're co-authoring a book called Cluck Off, The Bizarre But True Tales of the Ghostbuster Gals Chickens. I'm definitely getting into that sometime during this hour. Also, Laura Lee Mystica is with us, a.k.a. Witchy Woman. She has been in the holistic healing field for over 30 years and has taught cutting-edge healing labs to help practitioners learn new and innovative healing skills. Laura Lee uses a variety of magical and spiritual practices to reverse spells, curses, black magic, and voodoo. She is skilled in clearing all types of psychic, organic, and metallic implants using Almoricite, the stone of truth and justice, which also protects and assists her and her clients in managing the seen and unseen worlds. Laura Lee is an advocate for first-wave indigos who walked into Earth bodies and are here on a service mission to clear the corruption and bring all life forms back into balance. She teaches Knights training courses for Rise Omniversity to help indigos activate their X-Men abilities and sharpen skills they already use. Laura Lee is the author and publisher of 3 books and several websites. Let's welcome to Midnight in the Desert, Ronnie Renee Foster and Laura Lee Mystica. Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hi, we're good, Tim.
Good.
Good.
Wow, that was more than a mouthful there. I feel like
it was. Well, after 35 years of this stuff,
I was going to say, yeah, the resume should be pretty well fleshed out by now. You should have plenty of experience to go there. You both have plenty of experiences there. So when I sit and I read the resume, you have, it almost seems like when I read the monikers there, I don't want to say dark and light because I don't want to get simple about it. But is there a dark and light between the two of you? Does one look at the other and just assume that there's a balance between the two of you, or is there areas of gray between the two of you?
Well, I like to look at Laura Lee as a light white witch. Okay, not a dark witch. So I don't see any darkness between us. Or maybe she does. I don't know. But I work with the angelic realm. It's all light and love for me. And Laura Lee works with all sorts of stuff. But it's still always, I find, always in the light.
Okay. Laura, do you confer with that, or is it, would you say that? Go ahead.
Yes. Well, it's like I tell people, there's got to be people on this planet that go after these Dark Lords. And it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. And so Ronnie and I just kind of have different jobs to do. She works really well with Earth people,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't relate to me very well. So between the two of us, she works with the Earth people, and I do the really weird, out there stuff. And so together we have this good balance, and I think that's why this book is so unique, is that it's got both of our perspectives in it. And so it doesn't matter who you are, you'll be able to relate to something in the book.
Yeah, she's talking about our ghosts. Got ghosts?
Right.
Yes,
Got
the bizarre
ghosts?
but true tales of the Ghostbuster gals.
Okay.
And they are bizarre, but
And
they're
they-
very true.
They are.
And you know what? We'll dig into a couple of those bizarre tales here in a moment. I do want to ask this question right off the bat because it seems unusual that Ronnie working with angels and Laura Lee, you're a witch. You know, when you run into cases when you're investigating, I think you two have put it kind of brilliantly in that you don't run into a cookie cutter situation when you walk into a household. And, you know, recently I had some friends here in the Twin Cities that ran into a case where of course, a person who will remain nameless, she said, well, I'm a good Christian. And I right off the bat, I'm going to offend some people by saying this. And I don't mind offending a few people when I say this. But I'm a good Christian, or I'm a Christian, seems to come off a lot of times when investigators show up to a house. When people use the line, I'm a Christian, it's also used in an interview situation, in an investigation. The line is used as, I'm a good person. It doesn't necessarily mean I go to church every Sunday. It doesn't mean I'm a hard believer in the Bible, or I'm a hard believer even in Christianity. I think it's thrown out there because people don't want you to get the wrong idea about them, or don't want you to think, you know what, I'm not a bad person, or I didn't do something wrong to cause this. This was put upon me. So I'm going to throw this out at you right away when it comes to both your experiences here. Ronnie, do you find, and I'm going to start with you, when someone throws out the line to you, well, I'm a Christian, do you find 9 times out of 10, no, you know what, I'm not going to lead you with the question. Do you find when they throw out, I'm a Christian, do you find it believable, or do you find you need to dig into that story to really find out if they are or not?
Well, to be honest with you, to me it doesn't matter what they are. I honor everybody's belief system, and if they want to tell me that they're a Christian, then I'm going to honor that. But I know that, like you were saying, there are many kinds of Christians. I mean, you know, just because they say they're a Christian, I've seen so-called Christians be thieves and all sorts of nasty things we've had situations with because they're Christian in name only. But to be honest, I don't care. I don't care what they are. It doesn't matter when we've had people call us and say we have demons in the house because they're Christian, you see. And Christians tend to get into the demon thing. But in all the years and years that we've been ghostbusting, we haven't come across anything like a demon. What people are calling demons are actually ghosts that were really, really rotten people in their lives. We call them ass souls. So they were ass souls in their human life. They were mean, they were tyrannical, they would rip you off, they would hurt you. And when they died, they didn't cross to heaven, if we want to call it. They didn't cross. They got stuck and they become a ghost. And ghosts retain the same personality that they had when they were in human form and alive. So if they were real jerks as people on Earth, then they're real jerks as ghosts. And some people mistake that as being demons because they do rotten things. I mean, they do. But they're still just human beings that have left their physical bodies. Their soul has gotten stuck, and they're jerks. They're still jerks. So the Christianity thing, it doesn't matter. Now, if a ghost is Christian, you see, that really is important for us to know. Because when we are crossing a ghost over, we use whatever belief system that ghost has. So if the Christian, we call Archangel Michael, and we call Yeshua, Ben Joseph. That's what we call him. People call him Jesus, but I call him Yeshua because his mom did, But it's the same kind of thing. It's that energy, that love, that light of that being, and we have them come help cross the ghost over. So, yeah, the Christian thing is like if it just doesn't matter. I honor whatever they believe.
Now, Laura Lee, you'd be interested to find out that, and at least in my experiences, that there have been some cases in which I've been on the periphery, or I've been involved in, where some people that have thrown out the line, I'm a Christian, or at the beginning, you find out that during the investigation, really they were kind of messing around with stuff because they weren't. And what they were doing was they were fooling around with the supernatural because they were trying to find their spiritual path, or they were trying to find out what was really out there. And in that case, we had brought in, here in the Twin Cities, we have a particularly, words is hard, a particularly powerful pagan exorcist. And we brought him in on a few occasions. And he does wonders. And it just so happens that some of those people have decided they wanted to study under him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you run into situations where people decide, I've seen what Laura Lee can do as a witch. Well, I kind of want to study what Laura Lee does, or I kind of want to follow Laura Lee's path.
Yeah, I think the people that say I'm a Christian, it's almost like they're trying to convince themselves and be okay with what's going on, and like you say, they're kind of confused. What I have seen, and when Ronnie talks about demons, it's like people think anything that they don't understand is a demon. Now, I have seen some pretty bizarre and interacted with some pretty bizarre alien beings and interdimensional beings that you might term a demon, but we don't like to use that word because it conjures up, all of these preconceived notions of what something is.
Now, so, I'm gonna stop you right there, and because we're splitting hairs a little bit here. What made you think that alien presence would be a demon? Why, and how do you tell the difference between the two?
Okay, some people would think that. I rely really heavily on my psychic abilities to be able to sift through it and find out where it came from and who it's working for, and I get kind of this protocol of how to weed it out and figure out who, what, when, where, how, and why, and so that you can evaluate something. I found that there's a lot of things that are happening now that wasn't happening 10, 15 years ago when we first started. There's a lot of artificial intelligence things that weren't around 15 years ago, or if they were, you weren't seeing it very much.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely coming out of the woodwork now. And there's, interdimensional shifts, and there's things coming from other places, and time loops and space loops, and there's so much out there that nobody knows it all. Just when you think you got a handle on it, there's something new that you find. And so, back to this Christian thing, I do see a lot of Christians wanting to know more. They want to have an understanding, a basic understanding of how this stuff works, and they want to feel in command, because most of the time they feel so out of command, like they have to call their priest in to fix their problems. And that's one reason why we wrote the book. It's like, you don't need to do that. Get our tools, get the book, and you can do your own ghost busting, and you don't have to be afraid. And the book really takes the fear out of all the supernatural stuff. And that's the reason why our book has been so blackballed. We feel like we've been in like a black hole for 10 years. The book has been out. It's just been one thing after another. And it's because this book has tools in it that no other book has. And I can say that with pretty much a surety. Two things that the book has in that no other book has is the two tools that we use. One of them is the cryogenetics egg, which you can see now on the website, the picture of the egg. And the other one is the Almoricite Stone of Truth and Justice.
Okay.
And we will not do a ghost busting unless our clients have one of these stones with them, either in a pendant or rocks. And we give, if somebody buys a book, like if somebody buys a book on your show, we will give them a set of house grids to grid their house with truth and justice, so that they can do their ghost busting in a controlled setting. So you've got the backing of this amazing interdimensional rock that it's here for us now. It was snuck in. It was snuck in, and it's here to help. And I've got the only supply that I know of on the planet. My source, the source that I gave it to me, we used to be business partners, and then I got married, and he didn't like my husband, so he went away for a while, and then I got divorced, and then he came back, and he gave me another supply of it because we were partners, and then he left, and I haven't seen him, and I haven't heard from him, and I think he died. So my supply is all that I know of, and when it's gone, it's gone. So I have on my website, if you're just kind of looky-loo, don't get it unless you really want it. Now, I've got several years' supply still, but I want to make sure that I'm the steward of this rock, and I want to make sure it gets into the hands of those people that need it and understand it, not just somebody that will put it on their shelf and not do anything with it.
And we'll get in it because we're up against a break here. We got about 2 minutes before we have to go to break, and we'll get into what the actual properties of both of these are after the break and what exactly they do, and we'll get a little bit into the book too, and why it's been so blackballed and why people don't want to get into it, or why they don't want people to get a hold of it. Now, I do want to bring up something just real quick, and like I said, we have about a minute and a half here.
Okay.
I'm guessing, too, when you say the words do it yourself, and I can only relate this to my experience. When somebody says to me, Tim, it's real easy. You can fix your own car, fix your own shower, fix your own plumbing, fix your own stuff in your house. I look at them and I go, ugh, because I'm so heavy-handed. I bust every single thing, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean it in a bad way. I'm so heavy-handed, I will bust every single thing I go to fix. Now,
you'll be a good Ghostbuster.
not in a good way. Now, mind you, I said it not in a good way. Is it just that people are afraid to pick this up and do it themselves because they're afraid they're going to make things worse?
We've had a lot of people that have tried the do-it-yourself ghostbusting and followed step-by-step instructions and have been very, very successful with it. Mm-hmm. And if they think it's too much for them because they are afraid or whatever, then who are you going to call? Us. And so we bust it for them.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Like I said, we're up against a break. When we come back, we'll talk about those two things, the cryogenics egg and the Almoricite, and why exactly they work and how they work and why it works better than anything else that's out there. We'll do that when we come back. Our guests are Ronnie Renee Foster and Laura Lee Mystica. They are the Ghostbuster Gals. And when we come back, we'll talk about exactly how you're getting rid of this stuff in your house and why it's so easy to do this yourself, why you don't need to call in somebody else to do that. We'll come back with the Ghostbuster Gals, talk all about it right here on the best in Anomalous Talk Radio. This is Midnight in the Desert. Welcome back to the best in Anomalous Talk Radio. This is Midnight in the Desert. I'm Tim Dennison for Dave Schrader. Our guests tonight are Ronnie Renee Foster and Laura Lee Mystica. They are the Ghostbuster Gals. We're talking about the book Got Ghosts, the bizarre but true tales of the Ghostbuster Gals. And you can get the book by going to www.ghostbustergals/book. That's with a capital B.htm. And you can find that on their guest page at midnightinthedesert.com. Once again, ghostbustergals.com/book.htm with a capital B. So before we went to the break, gals, we were talking about the two things that can actually help you bust ghosts at home all by yourself. You don't need to do this by bringing in somebody into your home. You can actually just pick up the book, Got Ghosts, and use the two things that will help you get rid of these ghosts. One of those things being a cryogenics egg, the other being almoricite. Now, what exactly, and we'll throw this to Ronnie Renee first, what exactly is a cryogenics egg, or Laura Lee, either one, whoever's the more, I hate to say the more qualified to answer this. I don't want to start fights between the two of you. Although,
we never fight. We never fight because we have our expertises. But Laura Lee is actually the one that channeled the cryogenetics egg. So I'll go ahead and bow to her expertise on that one.
Now, okay, so Laura Lee, first of all, this is very interesting. You channeled the cryogenetics egg. Explain to me the story behind this and how you did that.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. It's been over 20 years, 25 years. It could have been 30 years. And I thought I was doodling. I started drawing this egg, and then I got obsessed with perfecting it, and I just kept going back and back and back, and making sure that everything was right, and I didn't know, I had no idea at the time, and then I have some spirit guides, and they go by the name of Hal, which is very funny because it's Hal on 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just really funny. Back in the 90s, everybody was, getting into the channel thing, and they had these exotic naming people sounding people's names that they were channeling, and I get Hal. So he told me that this egg is it's beyond sacred geometry. It's actually the spiritual aspect of the rock, and we have become to understand it more and more as the years have gone on. The first time I really understood the power of this egg is when we were doing a ghost busting at the Amargosa Hotel. And there was a really nasty, mean, foul ghost there that was terrorizing all the other ones. And he was just carrying on, and it was just horrible. And so I inadvertently, in my, like psychically, threw one of these cryogenics eggs around him, and it quarantined him. I'm like, well, that was easy. And he was mad. He was cussing and pounding on the shell of the egg and swearing, and then we had stuff to do, and I'm like, okay, I can't put up with this, and so I raised my hand over to where the egg was and dropped it, and I said night night, and he just kind of fell to the floor and went to sleep, so we could do our work. Now this story is in the book. And
I have to just interrupt because the most amazing thing, we're out in the desert, so we were actually in Pahrump doing a TV show, and they took us over to the Amargosa Hotel and Opera House because it was very haunted. So we were asked to help remove the ghosts because they've already tried 3 different separate people to try to help the ghosts, and they were unsuccessful. So we're in the desert. We're across the street in the middle of nowhere, and Laura Lee puts this mean, nasty asshole of a ghost in quarantine, and as she puts her hand down and says, night, night, we smell the most horrific sulfur smell you could ever imagine. It just stunk, and everybody smelled it. And we're looking around going, where'd that come from? Who did that? But it came from nowhere. Like I said, we're in the middle of a big field, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll let you continue, Lurley, because that smell was, I'll never forget that.
Now, Ronnie, if I can interrupt you real quick, normally when an investigator smells a sulfur smell from a spirit, they would automatically assume that spirit would be some sort of demonic.
Yeah, I know. That just tells you how they assume things. This being that we had trapped in the egg that was harassing all the other ghosts. There were hundreds of ghosts at this place. I mean, it was so haunted. And he was the big mucky-muck ghost that kept control over everything. He was not a demon, but we had that smell. It was very, very noticeable, and everybody smelled it. So it was weird. And I'll just tell a real quick story about the end of this, because it's in the book, and it's a rather long story. But after we got all the ghosts out, everybody, we sent across the tunnel, we sent everybody home, and the ghosts were very grateful. Then Laura Lee woke this demon kind of guy, but it was a guy, wasn't it? He acted like a demon. She woke him up, and again, he's spitting and cursing, and we see this in our mind's eye, okay? So we can both see him cursing and spitting and foaming at the mouth. I mean, it was really gross. But when it came to... Go ahead.
And he was smelling.
And he smelled again.
Yes.
He was smelling. We smelled the sulfur smell again.
It seems like the two ladies could get some sort of sponsorship from Febreze. I mean, it...
we could have used it. Yeah. It was so nasty. So in order to cross him, now, like I mentioned before, when we cross these souls, we try to use part of their belief system. But he didn't believe in anything. Jesus wouldn't have been any good. Archangel Michael, he just laughed at. And we're like going, oh my gosh, we need to find somebody to help take him across. And I thought about it, and I brought back his mother. And once I brought back his mother, I got to see this foul being's story. And the story was, when he was 10 years old, his mother died. And his father was really horrible and beat him, and I won't even go into the whole story, but you get the picture. Terrible father, beat him, treated him worse than a dog, and it made him a very nasty human being, very controlling, very tyrannical. When this vile being in there that was spitting, and I mean, it was horrible looking, but he was still human. When he saw his mother, all of a sudden his demeanor changed completely, and he softened up, and he literally became a little boy again, and we were able to cross him. She took him across the tunnel home. I call it home, and it's back to God, as far as I'm concerned. And after we did that, we smelled roses. In the middle of the desert, everyone's smelling the sweetest smell of roses. So, yeah, and the egg, we couldn't have done it without that cryogenetics egg.
No.
So.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, go.
No,
well,
go ahead.
The egg, that was the first time that I really understood that it could do way more than what I thought it could do. Mm-hmm. And then we have been working with it. It's upped its game a lot, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. And we now call it the Ultima 17 egg. And it just does amazing things. It knows what we need. When we have a ghost or an entity or whatever, or if it's AI or whatever it is, the egg now can pull out data and download it in the rocks for us, and then take whatever this we're working with or working on, and take it off to wherever it needs to go. And it will take, if somebody has been very traumatized and they need to go to what we call rehab, to get themselves put back together again, we put them in this egg, and the egg takes off like a homing pigeon and takes them where they need to go. And it's so easy. So for people out there, you don't need to know where to take these people. If you don't know what they need, you put them in the egg and say, go take them where they need to go, and it zooms off, like I said, like a homing pigeon, and will take them to their destiny. Now, this egg is one thing. When we ghost busted after 9/11,
mm-hmm.
and there was a net over the Twin Towers, and we were together, and we both got the hit. We need to check in on that place, and that's a whole long story too. But the people, the ghosts were stuck there, and they couldn't get out because there was a net over it. So we put everybody in the eggs, and the eggs were able to get through the net.
It was very weird.
Now,
it was one of the weirdest things we'd ever seen.
It was, and we didn't know anything about this stuff at the time. We just knew that the eggs could do it. And the very last ones to get into the egg were the firefighters. And they helped each other in, and then the egg went through, and it was able to get through those nets. Now, the nets were designed to keep recycling the pain, the suffering, the fear, the trauma, the drama over and over and over again, so the loose eaters could have a feast. And this egg penetrated that. Now, I believe that that's the reason why our book has been blackballed so bad, because this egg gets through all of these other traps and prisons and whatever. If you have a loved one, or if you find yourself that you think you're going to die, put one of these cryogenic eggs, just call on it and say, cryogenic egg, please come around me, and it will. And that way, if you feel like you might be in a position that you're stuck somewhere, the egg will know how to get you across and take you home like a homing pigeon. And
so there, yeah, I was going to say, there are beings out there that don't like that, because they feed on the fear, they feed on the darkness. And when someone has the tools to protect themselves, and they have these rocks, which is the physical manifestation of the eggs, the fear isn't there. When you educate yourself, there's nothing to be afraid of. And so no matter what we do for 10 years, we've been working with this book, we've had so many incidents of craziness that happens with our book. I mean, we've hired promoters and spent thousands of dollars with zero results. We've had our printer wind up throwing our books away. Boxes of books. Even when we started, when we got the books, seven boxes of books disappeared. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Even on radio shows, we've had so many times when our website is wrong, when the information is wrong. In fact, Lily, tell what happened with Midnight in the Desert.
Oh, yes.
This is so fun. This is just like perfect.
Yeah, right, because it's so it's so normal for us.
Okay.
I was checking your website out to see, because we've been on Midnight in the Desert twice, so I thought, okay, well, I'll check and see if our other shows are on there.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a link that said Ghostbuster Gals, so I clicked on it, and it brings me to a page that says, "Nothing found. This page does not exist."
Interesting.
That's funny.
I thought, typical. That is so typical.
Let me ask you this: Why do you think that is? What? Because I'll ask both of you. I'm not going to put thoughts in your head as to why this is, but I would ask you both outright: Why do you assume this is that this stuff is happening to you? Is it the? Well, no, I'm not going to put the thought. Give me your opinions as to why this is. Why is this stuff?
Okay. Well, let me tell you something. First of all, the 7 boxes of books that Ronnie was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I get the label back that said, "Oh, we lost your. Here's the label. We don't know what happened to the contents of the box." Just crazy stuff. And we have been looking and trying to figure this out for 10 years, why our book sales have been so low. And we were working with a promoter that everything she did worked. She never had anything that she promoted that just didn't fly after. And when she started working with our, trying to help us promote the book, she started having these shadow beings follow her around. And so she brought the books back to us. And then she thought it over, and she thought, no, I'm not going to let them intimidate me. So she got the books back, and she started displaying them. And she called me up one day, and she says, "They really hate you." I said, "Yeah, I know." And she says, no, you don't get it. They really, really, really hate you. I said, "Yeah, I know. And so she still got the book. She's still promoting, but
she hasn't sold one. I mean, we've even been on the top. We've been on the top radio shows. I mean, I consider Art Bell my all-time favorite in the whole world. And normally when people go on his show, they sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to sell 75. But that's the most we ever did. I mean, we've been on coast to coast, and we'd sell 4 or 5 books. It's craziness, and it's not because the book isn't good. If you read the reviews, and we have top people endorsing our book. I mean, James Van Praagh, he's one of my all-time favorites.
Mm-hmm.
He endorses our book. Daniel Brinkley endorses it. Brad and Sherry Steiger endorses our book. It's a good book.
Yeah.
But there's so much light in here. There's so much power in this book that the darkness doesn't like that. The darkness doesn't want that. And so they throw this cloak of invisibility on us. And so people out there that are listening right now, I bet there's some of them going, that sounds like a good book. I could really use that. And then 10 minutes later, they're going to forget to buy it. Unless they really force themselves to do it. And we had one show where people did. They just went through all the amnesia and all the other stuff, and they forced themselves to buy the book. And we sold 12. So anyway, it's frustrating. We don't want to whine about it, but we just want people to know there's so much light in this book.
Well, and information. That the thing is, our book is written that you can read it to your kids.
Okay.
It's funny. It's got stories about pet ghosts, so that if one of your pets dies, you can kind of understand what happens to your pet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's humorous. It's not scary. It deals with some really traumatic things, but it's not scary. And if you really, really want it, you'll be able to get through the gauntlet, so to speak, of craziness of trying to buy it. So I'm saying to your listeners, if you want it, it'll be worth it. You'll love it. It'll be. We've had people say that it's their go-to book. They have it by their nightstand. They read it all the time. The people that have it love it, and it's just been a very interesting journey. And now we kind of figured out. At first, we didn't know why. It's like, well, ghost books, I mean, they sell all the time. What's the matter? And it's just been the last year that we figured out why it had been blackballed so bad. And it's because of the rock and the eggs. And those are tools that everybody can have. You can use the egg. The egg can be your best friend. In fact, Ronnie and I go through this ritual every night where we egg ourselves and our animals and our kids and our houses, and it really does protect you from a lot of the chaos that's out there. Now, it won't protect you from everything all the time. It will let something in if you need to understand it. If there's something that you need to see or deal with, it will let that in. But it just gets rid of all the riffraff
Okay.
And then when you're in real trauma, it will help clean that out. The egg can spin. It can change colors. The symbols can spin.
It does a lot of things. When we were editing the cryogenetics book, which is a fabulous book, The Simple Secrets of Human Alchemy, Laura Lee and I were attacked nightly. I mean, we were psychically attacked all the time because there's powerful tools in that book as well. And even though we used the egg, a lot of the stuff got through, but it then helped us to develop more protocols so people can protect themselves. So in other words, we go through all the crap, and then we help people protect themselves from it.
Okay,
That's the whole purpose of the book.
That brings up an interesting question here, and we've got about 5 minutes here, ladies. You bring that up, that you were attacked even with the egg and stuff got through. Now, you're saying that people can do this stuff at home, and they're trusting that this egg and the Almoricite will keep them safe. If you're getting attacked and you're dealing with heavier and heavier attacks because there is so much light in this stuff, eventually you're going to bring on the King Kong of evil here with this stuff. How are people going to be guaranteed that they're going to remain safe and they're not just going to bring bigger and bigger baddies at themselves?
Well, that's a very good question. For me, it's going to be very different than Laura Lee. Go ahead. Did you want to say something?
So, I'll
Hear you in there.
Well, for one thing, Ronnie and I were writing the book. Okay, so we're gonna get the baddest of the bass on us doing that.
Yeah, we weren't ghost busting.
So for people that just have a little ghost that they want to send across, it's not. It will help you if you're on the front lines taking on these dark lords. There may be a few things getting through the egg so that you can understand how to navigate better. You know, if you're protected from everything all the time, you don't learn anything. So only for those who are on the front lines doing the work to take on the Dark Lord, is it going to let a few things in.
Well,
does that make sense?
That makes sense, but I understand that. But follow me here. I mean, I'm going to use some weird analogies here with you. Every minion serves a Dark Lord. Every crack addict started out with one rock. I mean, you know, you have to start small and build. You know, every millionaire started with $1. I mean, you never know what you're getting if you have, like, let's say a ghost in your house. You have just that ghost in your house, and maybe that ghost was the ghost of an abusive evil man, and maybe that abusive evil man was, let's just say, I don't know, worshiping Satan in his basement.
Mm-hmm.
And you had no idea, but he's being, mean he's kicking the dog, he's mean to the kids, he keeps the kids up at night, and you're like, you know what, I'm getting rid of this guy. And you get the book and the kit and everything, and off he goes, and everything's good. Okay, and we're running short on time here, but I'll wrap this up very quickly. So you get rid of him, but then you invite in, and you send him back to hell or wherever it is he's going, but then in comes something bigger to fill the void. Are you then
No.
yourself in bigger danger?
Nothing comes in to fill the void if you know how to do it correctly, because you don't allow the void to be there. You see, that's the difference.
You always put something good in the void, and
Yes.
those protocols are in the book. Every time you take something out, you have to replace it with something positive, something that's useful, and it outlines that in the book. So,
and that's why nothing else gets in.
Okay. Well,
yes, and we could go on for a really long time, but we know our time is up.
Right, we're up against the clock here, and we got about a minute. Let's get the book out there again one more time, so that we don't end up with 10 books out there sold. Again, the website is ghostbustergals.com/book.htm. Book is capitalized, by the way, capital B on book.htm. Once again, ghostbustergals.com/book.htm, and book is capitalized. And that link will be, again, on the midnightinthedesert.com guest.
And we'll give you a free set of grid rocks with each purchase, and you'll like these rocks.
Right.
There you go. All right. So they get a cryogenic egg, and they also get the almoricite as well with that?
They get the almoricite rocks, and the cryogenetics egg is something that you can use a picture of it. We don't have to give it away. It's something you use in your third eye.
Okay, great.
You imagine it, yes.
Great. All right, Ronnie.
You'll have us on again, won't you?
Yes, we will. We'll have you on again. Ronnie Renee Foster and Laura Lee Mystica, I appreciate you being with us. Ghostbusters gals, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, have a good night.
All right, thank you very much. Coming up next hour, the next 2 hours, folks, Dr. Jonathan Young will be with us. We'll be talking about how movies and characters in folklore are considered modern mythology. It's up next here on Midnight in the Desert.